Good morning, all you hardy souls. I hope everybody got something warm to sip and brought your coat or maybe a blanket on your way in. Welcome also to those who are joining us on live stream. Let me explain that we have no heat in the building this morning because of a broken boiler, so this service will be shorter than normal.
Kendyl,
Sir.
this was in simpatico with the homeless and the
Well, there is a certain experience of solidarity. We didn't plan it that way, but we'll talk some more about that. We also welcome those who are visiting us for the first time, who are guests this morning. We would enjoy knowing who you are. If you are a member who has brought a guest or met a visitor this morning, would you introduce them now? Anybody have someone? Yes, hi.
I'm Sarah Ann Butler from Atlanta, Georgia, and I will be here a month. And I raised my children in Liberty, and thank you so much.
Well, welcome. It's good to have you here.
I come from a UU which says Black Lives Matter.
All right. Very good to have you with us. I hope you'll come back another Sunday when it's warm in the building. Any other visitors or guests this morning? Yes. Hey, Jan.
We have brought another Kingswood resident, Ed Harris.
Hi, welcome. Glad to have you with us. Any visitors who brought yourselves that would be willing to tell us your name and where you're from? Well, welcome everybody. May I also take this moment to remind all of you that no matter what messages you may receive on email or social media, neither I nor anyone else on the staff or in leadership at All Souls will ever ask you to buy gift cards or do any other financial transactions on our behalf. Such a request will always be a scam. Don't fall for it. And please remind all your church friends about this. If you are ever at all uncertain about a request that you've received, please call the church office and check before you cooperate. We had planned to have a Sunday plus lunch following today's service, but there is no soup hot enough to overcome this chill, so we will eat together another time. We do expect to have the heat repaired this week, and so the building should be warm again by next Sunday. It would have been simple to cancel services altogether this morning, but in the face of all that is happening in our world as this new year begins, many of us have felt the need to be together, even in a bit of discomfort, to acknowledge the grief, the rage, and the despair that we are feeling just now. My colleague Gretchen Haley puts it this way: cast your vision here, in the middle of the hardest moment, the turning of the new year in this new century, this life so much worth saving, this fragile faith. For the children born now into the world as it is, with the threat of war and whole continents burning, for this world coming undone by distraction and greed and fear, this world divided by made-up borders, fake fights, and all that needs repentance and forgiveness. Here, stir up your steadfast hope. Still, while the memory lingers of holidays, chaotic and miraculous, into this day, offer the vision you've tried to talk yourself down from, your wildest dream, your most audacious aims, your resolute clarity of what remains possible, the beauty that whispers you to follow and build and become. Be generous with your dreaming and brave. All the paths to the future are born in this courage of imagination, this willingness to shed fear, to salvage the broken, to start again, to be a blessing for each other, to be blessed together. In sign of that blessing, we kindle now this flaming chalice, symbol of the warmth of community that calls us to gather, even in the cold, so that we may sustain one another and the ideals we share.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sierra, and I light this chalice for the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
Now let's stand together and speak once more the words of our covenant promise to one another. Together we affirm, goodwill is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to seek together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now we are trying to help you conserve energy and heat, and so we're going to invite you to move a little with this hymn. So every time we say turn the world around, I'm going to invite you to just turn around. I'll help you stay warm. Thank you. Have a seat. One of the opportunities that we did not want to lose by not meeting this morning is a visit from Melissa Job, who is a member of our sibling church out in Lenexa, Shawnee Mission Unitarian Universalist Church, and they have recently been able to open a seasonal shelter for people experiencing homelessness in Johnson County, but that has not come about without a lot of effort and cost. And so Melissa's going to tell us a little bit about that this morning and invite us to support that effort. Melissa.
Thank you. Thank you for having me this morning. And we were talking around. that got, hi,
Yeah.
start again. Thank you for the introduction. Shawnee Mission UU Church, Smooch, that we like to abbreviate. Over the last 2 months, we've been on quite a journey to open a seasonal shelter. In early October, a nonprofit organization called Project 1020, who's been operating a seasonal shelter in Olathe for 5 years, found us, and through one of our members asked us to help them. And we said yes. And we went to the city of Lenexa, and they said, no, you can't do that. For a variety of reasons, but most of which was that they did not have any codes on the city books that addressed how to safely operate a homeless shelter, because they've never had to address that issue, because apparently there are no homeless people in Johnson County. And we all know that that's not the case. There are, in fact. And we were concerned about it. I actually live in Olathe, and Project 1020 had spent the last year fighting with the city of Olathe about running the same services, and the city of Olathe essentially banned them from being able to operate in the city of Olathe. So when this came up, it occurred to us that this was just going to be a city-by-city tromp through Johnson County to see where a potential homeless shelter could open. And so when I looked at this, I am a lay lead. I've been on the board of directors at Smooch before, but I'm not currently serving on the board. I'm actually the scoutmaster for the new Scouts PSA troop at church. But in my day job, I'm a lawyer at Sprint. I handle all their patents and trademarks. And it came to, I started thinking about this and thought, boy, we're just going to have to march through all of the towns in Johnson County before we can get a homeless shelter. So I looked at it and decided that I can get involved by building a legal team that could take this head on and not in a slow process. This was October, and we had hoped to open on December 1st. Didn't know that was going to be able to happen, so we tried the nice way, talking nicely with the city officials, and that didn't work out. So I put together a legal team to go to federal court and exercise our religious freedom rights. This is a religious freedom right more than anything. And those of you who don't know, Smooch is in a former elementary school. It's a 14-acre property. It's a pretty big property, and it's a huge building that we don't use very efficiently, to be honest with you. There's a lot of empty space that could be put to good use. And we bordered a train track. We bordered downtown Old Lenexa, a lot of the senior center, community center, 2 or 3 residents, and a bunch of other like office buildings and things like that. But it's zoned residential, so they treat us like a family house. And that's what they hung their hat on. Anyway, so we needed to go to court, and I took on the responsibility of building the legal team. So I set about trying to find a legal team here in Kansas City that could help us with this. And I cannot tell you the number of law firms I called and asked to help us. There are law firms that specialize in sort of these zoning and regulations, and none of them wanted to take on the city of Lenexa. Called other people, and I happened to find a law firm in Michigan that specializes in land use issues related to religious communities. There's 2 things that work on our side. One is the Constitution and obviously the First Amendment. The second is there is a federal statute called Religious Use and Institutionalized Persons Land Use Act, RELUPA, which allows religious communities to use the land that they've purchased for religious purposes without undue regulation. And so, needless to say, I was able to find the expertise on this, and I likened it to as if one of my 3 children were really ill and needed help, and I needed to find the right doctor. I would not go to a podiatrist if one of my children had a heart problem. I would look for a heart surgeon or, a cardiologist. And as a lawyer, I specialize in intellectual property, so I do patents, trademarks, ideas, things like that. So me dabbling in the world of law to bring a case against the city of Lenexa. Well, if you'd waited on me, we'd still be working on it. So anyway, long story short, we filed for a temporary restraining order. We had our hearing. About 130 people showed up in Orange. We had to be moved to a larger courtroom. We had our hearing. The judge pressured us to settle. And we did sit down the next week with the city of Lenexa, and we have settled. We have a 3-year agreement to operate the shelter. The shelter opened on December 14th. Yeah. So we've got the shelter open, and it's serving people. We can serve up to 30 people sleeping per night, and it's been in operation since. It will operate until April 1st and do the same December 1st to April 1st for the next 3 years. We also have a commitment from the city of Lenexa that they will engage with us in deciding what their new statutes and laws will look like. But it's clear from the negotiations that they intend to act quickly, and as soon as they come up with new statutes, we have to readjust how we operate. So I'm here anyway because it cost us quite a bit of money. It cost us about $75,000 to bring that case. The city was required to contribute $15,000 to that, and they have. We've raised about half of the rest, and so now we're reaching out to our fellow UUs and other churches and other civic organizations. If you know where we can go and give a pitch, let me know. So we're asking for your generosity to come and help us with this journey. We believe it helps all religious communities in Johnson County, actually outside of Johnson County, in this whole area, particularly liberal religious communities. We can use our liberal values, are just as valid religious practices as others. So hope you will join us and give generously. And if there are other opportunities we should be aware of, you can bring those to my attention. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Melissa. In this spirit, the offering will now be given and gratefully received. And if there are a few children here who are ready to go to the children's program, they can also gather outside in the lobby at this time. Will you join me now in the words of dedication for our offering? We dedicate our offerings and our actions to the mission at the heart of this congregation, to build a respectful, caring community to inspire personal and spiritual growth, and to create change toward a just and compassionate society. The trauma of homelessness among our fellow citizens of Kansas City is only one of several crises urging themselves on our attention in these first days of the new year. And I am haunted by the prophetic words of the poet Robert Frost. Some say the world will end in fire. Others say in ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if I had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. The continent of Australia is on fire, the whole continent. Hundreds of millions of animals have died, as well as 23 people, including several firefighters. And more than 12,000 homes have been destroyed. The fires are spreading while the country experiences its hottest summer temperatures on record. Authorities continue to order evacuations of threatened areas and are unable to predict how or when the enormous bushfires might be brought under control. These fires are visible from outer space, and the destruction and suffering are on a scale that is all but unimaginable. Also, early this Friday morning, U.S. military forces conducted a targeted drone strike in Baghdad, which killed 7 members of Iraqi militias, including General Qasem Soleimani, the head of Iran's elite Quds military force, and one of the most powerful figures in the Islamic Republic leadership. While few would defend Soleimani as a victim or deny his history of terrorist activities, this assassination escalates tensions in the region and is likely to provoke retaliation. It may have been a war crime. And neither members of Congress nor our international allies were notified in advance of the mission, as is customary. International oil prices have risen quickly in response to uncertainty about future attacks. And thousands of additional American troops are being deployed to the area, whereas diplomats and other civilians are being advised to leave immediately. Meanwhile, in our own nation, the president remains under impeachment and continues to defy subpoenas and to obstruct investigations into his financial history and actions as president. State officials continue to attempt voter purges and gerrymandered districting in order to suppress votes, while voting technologies remain foolishly vulnerable to hacking by either domestic or international scammers. Hate crimes, including anti-Semitic attacks, are spreading. Police officers have yet again killed an unarmed black man. And thousands of immigrant children, including toddlers and infants, remain separated from their parents, locked into camps, and denied basic human rights and care. It is a daunting way to begin the new year. And yet, as Gretchen Haley observes, we must retain a resolute clarity about what remains possible. I'm reminded of the ancient Greek myth of Pandora, the beautiful woman sent by the gods to punish humans for the theft of fire. In her earliest role, she was an earth goddess, the giver of all things, as her name implies. A patriarchal retelling of her story recounts how she was sent to earth from heaven with a jar and told not to open it. Unable to resist her curiosity, she did finally peek inside, and all sorts of human disaster and suffering flew out of the jar. When all the evils had escaped, the only thing that remained in the jar was hope. Now, some say that hope was the worst curse of all, that it is what keeps us striving even when the odds are so stacked against us that the rational thing would be to just give up. But it seems to me that is not the whole story. I think that hope is illusory when we suppose, either individually or collectively, that we are running this show. We are accountable for our choices, yes, but we are not in control. Authentic, meaningful hope is based in the recognition that there are forces larger than ourselves at work in the world. And we can choose to align our efforts with those creative forces. We may not end up getting exactly what we thought should happen. We may not even see the ultimate outcome of the struggles in our own lifetimes. But life-giving hope is always founded on that resolute clarity about what remains possible beyond the crisis of this moment. Hope is not about your immortality or mine. Our days will end, our works will perish, our systems will fall. But if we have spent our days in the service of those larger forces, working for a better world, then hope is not the final curse on our humanity, but rather the thing that sustains us and gives meaning to our finitude and suffering. When Pandora took the lid off that jar, out came tyranny and flew away to many places, including Washington, D.C. But the longing for liberty is larger than you or me. Out came natural disasters, hurricanes, earthquakes, tornadoes, flood, and fire, and flew all the way to Australia. But nature is larger than we are. Out came war and terrorism and flew to every part of the globe and now to Iraq. But the dream of peace is larger than any of us. Out came poverty, hunger, and homelessness, and flew everywhere, even to our own neighborhoods. But the urge to fairness and compassion are larger than we are. What remains possible is not exhausted yet, and therefore there is hope still in the jar. I invite you now to add the weight of your witness to the suffering of our fellow beings and our fellow creatures, as well as to the intention of your hope for all the troubles of the world. For hope remains in the jar even now. Hope for the people and the creatures and the lands of Australia. Hope for restraint, goodwill, and peace among nations, religions, armies, and leaders. Hope for democracy, conscience, and justice here in these United States. And hope for safety, comfort, and dignity for our most vulnerable neighbors. In the days to come in the course of this year, there will be opportunities for each of us to give substance to this witness and to make these intentions real. There will be rallies and demonstrations to attend, organizations to support with money, letters to write and calls to make, votes to cast, work to be done. When those moments come, I wish that I might remember holding these stones of hope, which remain in the jar that released so much fear and suffering. I wish that I will bear witness in the days of my life to all that remains possible. And I wish that you would join me. Put them in the dishes. May our shared desire for peace, justice, and human dignity be greater than our greed. May we learn to overcome hatred through the example and practice of love. May we together forswear our tragic empires and make the earth glad and wise. May these intentions guide our work and our care as the year now before us unfolds. Let's rise and sing.
Turn back, forswear thy foolish ways. Old now is earth, and none may count its days. Yet humankind, whose head is crowned with flame, still will not hear the inner God proclaim. Turn back, forswear thy foolish ways. Earth might be fair, its people glad and wise. Age after age, our tragic empires rise. Built while we dream, and in that dreaming weep. Would we but wake from out our haunted sleep. Earth might be fair, and people glad and wise. Earth shall be fair, and all its people one. Nor till that hour shall God's whole will be done. Now, even now, once more from earth to sky, peals forth in joy that old undaunted cry. Earth shall be fair, and all its people one.
Nothing that is worth doing can be achieved in our lifetime. Therefore, we must be saved by hope. Nothing we do, however virtuous, can be accomplished alone. Therefore, we must be saved by love. No individual effort, however worthy, is assured of success. Therefore, we must seek to serve forces larger than ourselves. Go in peace, integrity, and power.